Well, guys, right now we have so many different things that are coming together that could cause major hardship, major struggle, death, collapse here in the United States and around the world. So many issues, and it's all happening all at once. It's not a single issue to deal with, it's multiple issues to deal with. For example, the southern border is still wide open. We still have thousands of illegals crossing through every week being brought into the United States, being unvetted. Who knows where they come from, what they are, who they are, what they plan on doing here. We have $35 trillion in national debt officially. It's actually much higher than that, but that is a huge debt. It's going to soon be to the point that the United States government's tax revenue, the money they rob from you and I, isn't going to be able to pay the interest on that debt. We have issues like complete moral decline here in the United States and around the world, actually. I mean, if you look at what's going on here in the U.S. with all the transgender things, and if you look at the Olympics and everything going on there, if you look at all the demonic symbolism that we see constantly and bombarded with, it's easy to see that we have a moral and spiritual problem here in the United States. We have a debt problem here in the United States. We have open southern border. We have right now war fixing to break out in the Middle East, most likely between Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, United States. Russia may get involved. Who knows how far it's going to explode outwards. But I do know that when that happens, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed off, or at least severely restricted as far as the shipments coming in and out of that location. And it's going to affect us here in the United States. When you affect gasoline prices, oil prices, everything goes up because everything runs on fossil fuels. So the price will go up on everything. In the United States, we'll have to print more money to fund these wars. So inflation's going to go up. I mean, there's so many different things right now that's going on that it would be impossible, in my opinion, to not have some kind of a total huge collapse. And it looks like it's going to be caused by multiple issues coming together to cause this huge collapse. We also have things like terror cells here in the United States. We have sleeper cells because it makes sense that with the border wide open, that these other countries around the world that know that the United States isn't friendly to them, they're not friendly to us, would send sleeper cells across their open border into the United States by the thousands. They already have their targets picked out, no doubt, the critical infrastructure picked out, the water treatment facilities, power, communications, and those will be knocked out at any time. When they're given the word, those can go down. We also have things like cyber attacks. I mean, it's just everything right now is coming together to cause major hardship, major struggle, and major changes here to the United States. And actually, around the world, if you look at what's going on, it's going to be a worldwide event. But the United States, we've lived at a level that most people have only dreamed about. Now, we're going to be brought down to a much lower level than what we're used to living, and we could even go back to some primitive type existence. I mean, who knows at this point what could happen? Nukes could fly. I mean, it is horrifying if you think about it, and far too many people right now are focused on selections. They think if we can elect one man, that is going to fix all these issues. It's going to be magically, fingers snapped, we're going to be living the great life once again. And that simply isn't going to happen. There's too many different factors, too many different things coming together to just fix it like this. And I know you don't want to hear that. You don't want to prepare yourself. A lot of people don't, because it's difficult. It takes resources. It takes planning. So you want to not actually do that. You want to rely on your voting. You want to rely on a politician to come in and fix it. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know if it can be fixed or not at this point. And like I said, it is a lot of this we're seeing now is a spiritual issue. And the only thing that's going to fix a spiritual issue is Jesus Christ. It ain't going to be Donald Trump or anyone else to come in and fix it. So you need to rely on Jesus Christ. If you haven't been saved yet, you need to get saved. You need to get baptized. You need to read your Bible. And don't think this is preaching to you all, because, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what you need to do. You don't have to do anything that I say. That's totally up to you. But this is coming from the heart of things you need to do now to get ready. Focus on the Lord Jesus Christ. Focus on prayer. Focus on Scripture. Focus on your spiritual well-being, because that is extremely important. More important than a lot of people seem to realize nowadays. You also need to prepare, to prep. It is biblical to prepare, to prep is biblical. And I know some people will say, if you prep, if you stockpile, then that's showing you have a lack of faith in God to provide. No, God's providing right now. He's given us opportunity, and has been for years now. He's given us opportunity to prepare. He's giving you an opportunity to prepare. He's telling you right now, get prepared. He's letting you watch these videos. You've had things and time that you could have purchased and skills you could have learned, but still yet you sweep it away. You don't think anything's going to ever happen. If it does, you're going to rely on God to bring you a cheeseburger or a pizza. It doesn't work that way. God gives you warning. God lets us know that things are getting worse. He lets us know with common sense that you need to prepare. But still yet, so many people will not listen. They will not do anything at all because they're lazy and want to make excuses. Now let's get into a few things, a few suggestions that I think you should be doing right now. One of the first things, in my opinion, this isn't financial advice. This is just what I would do and what I have done, is I would move as much of my currency out of the banking system into where I could get a hold of that whenever I wanted to. Because you don't know, through cyber attacks, through grid outages, or through bank bail-ins or whatever, you might not always be able to go get that currency out of the bank. You may go and they may tell you, we don't have it. The computers are down, so you can't get anything out. So if you have that in hand, that's not going to be an issue. So you want to get as much out of the banks, in my opinion, as you possibly can, and have that on hand at all times. Because like I said, there may come a point in time where you can't get a hold of that, where it isn't accessible. And if you have that or at home, if you have that hidden, if you have that in a safe, you have that in a cache, then you can get to that when you need that. And if you look at the way they're going to implement this digital currency, I think they're going to have a cyber attacks, power grid attacks, internet attack to bring everything down. And then when it's brought back up, you want nothing, and you won't be happy about it. That's the plan, in my opinion. And then we'll say we have to put everyone on this new digital currency. And your cash will be gone. Your cash will be lost. You don't think that's going to happen. You don't think that it can happen, but it definitely can happen. It has happened in the past. Bank bail-ins, they take your money, they shut the ATMs down. You cannot get your money out of the banks. So get it out now while you still can. And guys, in my opinion, one of the best ways to put that cash you have, if you have any left right now, which a lot of us don't, but if you do have cash on hand, you have cash in the banks, you can do things like order survival supplies. You can go to My Patriot Supply and order a year's supply of survival food. Put that back and you'll have that when you need it, and you're going to need it here very shortly, in my opinion. So you could transfer some of your cash into, long-term food storage. I'll put a link down in the description box below to My Patriot Supply and check those out. Or, you can get the money out of the bank and you can go to your supermarket and buy food. But you have to have food on hand because you and your family or loved ones have to eat. That's common sense. You have to have food on hand. So like I said, if you have money in the bank, you don't want to go just get that out, you can order online and order your supply of survival food or 2 or 3 years if you can afford it, and get that shipped to you, and you'll have something tangible, something to eat, something that's actually worth having there in your home, in your storage. That way when you can't get food and your family are starving, your kids are starving, you'll have a good supply of food on hand, so you won't be starving. But a lot of people will be starving because they refuse to do anything prep-wise. So you can turn some of that cash, into survival food. And if you don't want to order long-term survival foods, you can do just as well by going to the supermarket and buying foods that have a good storage life, like canned foods and flour and cornmeal and things like that, and put that back and have that on hand. Whichever way you want to go, it's fine with me. You can use a mixture of long-term storage food that you buy, because some things are more difficult to store, and you can order those that's already pre-packaged for long-term storage and put those back, and you can buy other foods at the supermarket and you can mix it up like that. And however you want to do this, whatever's best for you, you want to do that. But you definitely want to have food on hand, because every one of us have to eat. If you don't eat, obviously you're going to die. And you don't want to be without food, because you might get to the point where you can't get food, or it might be so expensive, or it might be ration that you're getting just a small pittance served out to everyone. You may be in a soup line and may just get, one dip of what looks like maybe soup. Who knows at this point? You might have to be in bread lines again, trying to get free slice of bread or two. But if you already have food on hand, that's not going to be an issue. You can still go to look like you are in need if you want it to. That's a kind of a ruse to make people think you're in the same shape they're in. But that's something you have to think about, and something to be on an individual level depending on the circumstances. But you need to get food storage, obviously, so you can take some of that money that you get out of the bank if you have any, and order some long-term food storage, or go to the supermarket and buy some stable food that's put back to stockpile, so you'll have some food on hand, because it's definitely going to be needed, because the prices are going to go up. So even if you can still go buy food, you may not be able to afford food. It's not going to get any cheaper, in my opinion. So get it now and stock up on that. That way you can purchase at the prices now. The prices are high now, but it's going to get much, much worse as inflation and the cost of shipping and manufacturing and everything of the food and the canisters and the cans and everything are going to cost more money to manufacture because of oil prices. So that's going to cause you to spend more at the supermarket. So get it now at their prices now and put that back, because like I said, it's not going to get any cheaper, in my opinion. And guys, next you want to get a good water filter. I'll link to a good water filter down in the description box below. You can check that out, or you can get an equivalent, do some research and get what works best for you. But you need a good water filter, and you need some extra filters. You also need to put back some water. It's difficult to put back, a year's supply of water because of space issues, but put back as much as you can in good containers. You can store back tap water. Just make sure your containers are strong and made for water storage. You don't want to use something like, milk jugs that you've cleaned out, because those are weak. Those break down over time and those leak. So you want to get some good water storage containers. Again, you can order those. You can convert some of that money you have in the bank. If you have any money in the bank, I know some people don't, or don't have a lot, but if you do, then you can convert that into things like water storage containers to store back water, clean drinking water, because that's like food. You're going to have it. And if these sleeper cells that's in the United States attack water treatment facilities, you may not have any clean drinking water to drink. Your water, your commode may not flush. So you may have to figure out how you can collect rainwater, for example, to flush your commode, because you don't really want to use your clean stored drinking water to flush your commode. You may want to look into things like composting toilets. You might want to, if you can, where you are, build an outhouse. You might want to get some hydrated lime to, pour a scoop over top of what you leave when you go into the bathroom. If you poop, you want to get the hydrogen lime and cover that up, even in an outhouse. That way you can keep that smell down. Think what you're going to need and take that money that you have, if you have any, and invest it in supplies. And guys, next on my list is prescription medications. If you can get off of any prescription medications with your doctor's permission, of course, if you can get healthy enough to get off those medications, that is the best situation to be in. However, if you can't and you have to have medications, it's difficult to get, a year's supply of most medications. The doctor want to give you 3 months at max, and then they want you to come back and get some more. But you can get a lot of what you need, including antibiotics, which can be life-saving, at Jace Medical. You can check them out in the description box below. You can use code Creekmore10 to get $10 off your first order. So check out Jace Medical to get a year's supply of your prescription medications and antibiotics. That's extremely important. Some medications, if you don't have, you can have serious health consequences if you don't take those. So you want to have those on hand, and a year's supply is definitely better than having, a 3-month supply. Like I said, if you can get off of these medications, you're much better off. But if you can't, you can't right now, having a stockpile on hand, just in case you can't get those, because a lot of our medications in the United States, including a lot of antibiotics, are made in China. The last I read, it was like 90% of all prescription medications and antibiotics that we use in the United States are actually made in China and then shipped to the United States. So that could be cut off. That supply could be cut off at any time. So you want to have a good stockpile. A year's supply would be great. 3 months just won't cut it. And usually when you get that 3 months, you're already using on that. So most likely right now, you don't have a 3-month supply unless you just went to the pharmacy and picked that up. So contact Jace Medical, link in the description box below. And guys, next is ammunition and spare magazines. Full capacity spare magazines. If you don't have a gun, get that first, obviously. However, a lot of people have guns, have firearms, and don't have a whole lot of magazines or ammunition. Instead of stocking up on those, they will go out and buy a new gun because they want that new toy to play with. And they may end up with 7 or 8 AR-15s and 7 or 8 magazines is all they have, and maybe a couple hundred rounds of ammunition, but they have plenty of guns to play with. Don't do that. That's a mistake. You need to get firearms, obviously, to shoot the ammunition in and to use the full capacity magazines in. But you need to stock up on those magazines. Get as many as you can. I would have at least 12 spare magazines for every firearm that I have. I have more than that actually myself, but that to me is a minimum to have 12. So if you have an AR-15, your wife has an AR-15, your son, your daughter, whoever is in your group has an AR-15, you want to have at least 12 magazines for each one of those AR-15s. Same thing with handgun magazines. You want to have at least 12 magazines. 12 is a good number. More is better, obviously, because those prices will definitely go up. I remember when the Clinton era magazine ban happened, and they had laws in the books that banned any magazine over 10 rounds for anyone besides police and military. You could still get those magazines, but you pay dearly for those. That's been over 20 years ago, if I remember correctly. It's been over 20 years ago. And at that time, a Glock 17 magazine, the full capacity Glock 17 magazine, was over $100 each, if you could find that. So you see how those prices go up. You can usually buy anything you need. However, you're going to pay dearly for it. So if you can, get it now. And I know some of you will say, well, the election's coming up here shortly, and Donald Trump will be elected president, so I don't have to worry about gun bans, assault weapon bans. We don't have to worry about magazine capacity limits and things like that. Not true. You don't want to hear this, I know, because no one usually does. But neither side, Harris or Donald Trump, are actually pro-gun. Both want to take your Second Amendment rights. Both don't really care much about the Constitution. That's been proven already. You know, Donald Trump is for red flag laws, bump stock bans. He's talked about in his book banning assault weapons, whatever that may be, semi-automatic firearms. he has pushed a lot of things that isn't aligned with the Second Amendment or the Constitution, like stop and frisk. That's not allowed by the Constitution. Like making it a felony with a 1-year minimum sentence for anyone who burns a flag. That's not constitutional. If you buy your flag, you should be allowed to burn that. I don't agree with it and don't suggest it, but if it's your property, you should have that right to do that, because that's the United States of America, and that is freedom of speech. As long as you ain't destroying private property or destroying your own property, you should be allowed to do that. Who's to say that if a law like that passed through, that next, if you burn a rainbow flag, you may have a minimum sentence of 20 years in prison. See, it keeps snowballing these things, though. You have to follow the Constitution. You have to support the Constitution. And unfortunately, Harris or Donald Trump don't really care much about the Constitution. They don't really care about following the principles this country is built on. Now, in my opinion, Donald Trump would be better for the border, most likely. Who knows now? I mean, things change, times change. But he should be better for the border. He should be better for domestic oil drilling. It should be better for manufacturing and economy here in the United States. But as far as gun rights goes, as far as the Constitution goes, neither candidate gives me the fuzzies inside. I know you don't want to hear that, and it's going to be difficult to swallow that, to take that, and you may unsubscribe, and that's fine, but it's just a fact of the matter. Do some research. Neither candidate is pro-gun. Neither candidate is pro-Constitution. They can say whatever they want, but their actions has proved otherwise. So you want to stockpile, take some of that money you have in the banks, and buy ammunition, buy spare magazines, as many as you possibly can, as many as you can afford, because you never know when those are not going to be available, or you can't afford to get those. And got a little list here on my phone. The next thing is, winter is coming. Right now, we're the first part of August. It's August the 2nd, I think that it is right now, actually. And just a few weeks, we'll be getting into wintertime. It's going to be more colder weather. You need to think, what can I do to keep warm and not freeze to death if something happens in the middle of winter? And that's usually when things do happen. You see things happening now. We see the election leading up, and that could lead to civil unrest. We see war getting ready to break out that could last well into the winter. We could see those oil prices or fuel prices or cyber attacks, those sleeper cells knock out the power grid. So you may be in your home without any heat. So how would you heat your home? Do you have a wood stove? Do you have any way to keep warm? If you've done anything, even like getting cold weather sleeping bags to keep you and your family from freezing to death, have you looked into backup heating solutions? Something to think about. Now, it depends on where you live at, how much you're going to need. If you live like in Florida, where the weather doesn't get as bad, or even here in Tennessee, where it doesn't get as bad as it does in places like Idaho and Montana and further up north. If you live up in those areas, you need to look into this really, really seriously and make this a top priority for sure. It's a priority for pretty much everyone, because at least if you live in climates that has 4 seasons, but in certain locations, the winters are much more harsh, much longer, and much colder, so you need to put back more, like firewood, for example. You need to put back, I can get by with probably a quarter of the firewood that would be needed in somewhere like, Idaho, northern Idaho, where it gets more cold, more longer winter. You're going to have to heat longer, you're going to have to heat more to keep comfortable. So I can put back less, but if you live in a place like that, you're going to need to put back more. Or you might want to get, at the bare minimum, something like a Mr. Buddy heater, and get one of the hoses that you can hook, the 20-pound propane tanks to, and store back some of those enough to go through the winter with. Look for ways to cook if your power grid goes down. I mean, so many things to consider, and people are so far behind right now that it is horrifying, because people haven't actually done anything, or at least a lot of people hasn't done anything. Next is communications. You want to know what is going on. So at the minimum, I suggest you get a good shortwave radio. I will link to the one I have, description box below. It's pretty expensive. You can get cheaper ones, but this was one of the better ones in my opinion. It is. You can see it in my other videos where I'm sitting at my desk. It sits behind me right over here. And that's a good shortwave radio. I'm not going to suggest anything I don't actually own, like a lot of people does. They suggest things they don't own just to make a commission. But get a good shortwave radio. You might want to look into some two-way communications like GMRS, MERS, CB radio, whatever you want to use to communicate with your family, communicate with your neighbors, because the communications can definitely go down. Like I said, cyber attacks, direct attacks here on the grid can take that down, and more than likely it probably will. Next on my list is, if you can afford it. This is excellent items and recommend it if you can afford it, but if you can't, you might want to look at alternatives like storing back some batteries, some candles, flashlights, rechargeable batteries, and a small solar panel. But if you can afford it, if you can afford it, it's a good idea to invest in a solar generator, those battery backup power banks, and get the largest one you can afford, like a Opus Mega 3 or a Mega 5 with solar panels. That way you have an actual solar generator. If you don't have the solar panels, then you just have a storage box to store energy in that battery, and you have to charge it up somehow when that runs down. If you have solar panels, then you have a solar generator. Also, once you get that, it's great. It's not 100% necessary, but it's definitely recommended if you can afford it to get a gasoline powered generator. The little Honda generators are great. They're kind of expensive. You can get cheaper ones, but the little Honda generators are quiet. They use very little fuel actually. I've had one for years. I'll link to the one I have in the description box below, or the newest version of the one I have. I've had mine for like 8 or 9 years. Oh, shit, probably longer than that. I've had mine probably 12 years actually. It's been a long time since I bought that generator. That Honda generator. Still runs perfectly. Still functions perfectly. It's one of the quietest generators you can get. It sips fuel. You can use that to charge when you're doing something else. With that, you can actually plug in your battery power bank, your solar generator, and you can charge that through your gasoline power generator. If you can get both, you're much better off. Power is going to be extremely important to making your life more comfortable. You can get by with batteries, rechargeable batteries, a small solar battery charging system. You can get some of those for like $150, even cheaper than that if you get some of the real cheap ones. But there is a sun jack that I have actually also, and you can get the battery charger to charge AA batteries with that. I don't know if you can get them to charge other batteries, but I know you can to AA because that's what I have. And a lot of your things now use AA batteries. Your radios and two-way radios and things use those type batteries. But you're better off if you can, like I said, to have rechargeable batteries, to have multiple different power sources. Rechargeable batteries, candles, solar generators, gasoline power generators, ways to power and recharge everything for as long as possible, because that'll make your life easier. And comfort will help a lot on your mental stability and helping you to survive. A lot of people can get a tent, a knife, piece of string, and go to the woods, put that tent up, and live, but it's going to be difficult. If you have your family, if you have kids, you want to be as comfortable as you can, in my opinion, because suffering if you don't have to is rough on you mentally and physically. So you want to be comfortable. So you want to have heat, you want to have food, you want to have power, if at all possible. I'm sure I left out something. This is a pretty good list, a pretty long video. I'm going on 30 minutes now with this video. But if I've forgotten something, then add it to my list. You can check out my books on Amazon. Just go search for MD Creekmore. My books will pop up. There's a full list of things in those books. You can go in the comments below and leave your recommendations, leave your thoughts. But again, I'll have links in the description box below to my Preacher Supply if you want to take some of that money you have in the bank, if you have any, and invest it in long-term storage foods. I'll also put links to Jace Medical, description box below. I'll put links to my preferred shortwave radio and some other things in the comments below, and in the first pinned comments. You can check those out, and if you can afford those, if you want those, you can check those out and maybe purchase those with some of that money you have in the bank. Anyway, starting to ramble on now. Like I said, this video is just about 30 minutes long, so check in the comments below if you liked the video. Get a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm the Creekmore Matter, and I'll see you all in the next video. Hopefully, you never know anymore, guys. You never know how long it's going to last, but hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.